Hey guys, moving on with our genetics notes. We left off yesterday just after our laws of inheritance. I'll just hit those again real quick. We had the law of dominance that said some alleles are dominant over others. If they're not dominant, we call them recessive, and they only show their version of the trait if there are no dominant alleles around. Law of segregation, that during meiosis, in organisms, two alleles for a certain gene are separated and only one goes in each gamete. And our law of independent assortment that said the way one gene goes, towards one set of eggs or sperm versus the other, does not affect at all the other ones. So they each have their own independent probability during meiosis. All right, speaking of probability, what is that? Okay, so it's the likelihood that something will happen. And we can write it one of three ways, and honestly, it doesn't make a difference to me. So we can write it as a percent, like 25%, a fraction, like 1/4, there's a 1/4 chance, or a decimal, could say 0.25, right? All of those, 25%, a quarter, or 0.25 mean the same thing. In genetics, we use what are called Punnett squares. I'm going to second guess myself if there's two T's on the ends. And hopefully you kind of remember how to do these. We're just going to do 4 kind of to remind ourselves. So the first two, we're going to use this gene. It says in peas, purple flowers are dominant over white flowers. So what letters are we going to use to represent these alleles? So purple is the dominant one. So I'm going to make capital P for purple. And so what would represent the white allele? Not a W. Okay, a lowercase p for white. Okay, so remember it's uppercase and lowercase of the same letter. All right, so let's say I have two parents. We'll kind of do what Mendel did here. So we'll start with two parents who are both homozygous. This one would be homozygous dominant or homozygous purple, and this parent would be homozygous recessive or a white one, right? So what you do, you take one parent, put their alleles down the side, and the other parent put their alleles across the top. But we follow the law of segregation, right? So their alleles are separated from each other. So I only put one here and one here. So that in each box you put what is on the outside in the box. And if you have two different ones, always put the capital one first. Okay, so every single one of these boxes is exactly the same. Okay, so every box would represent a 25% chance or a 1 in 4 probability, but they're all the same. Okay, so if I was going to write out the genotype or the genotypic, expectation, we would have 100%. Then you have to remember what's genotype. It is the letters, so it would be capital P, lowercase p. And then the alternative phenotype, again, they're all the same, so we'd have 100%. Would they be purple flowers or white flowers or light purple flowers? Since purple is dominant, they would have 100% purple flowers. Okay. All right, so then let's see what would happen in the next generation if I took these and made them my next parents. Okay, so my Punnett square down here is going to be two heterozygous parents. So again, you take one parent, split up their alleles, put them down the side, big P, little p, and the other parent, split their alleles up across the top, big P, little p, and then fill in. Okay, so this box has capital P, this box, I go all the way over here, capital P, lowercase p, and then little p, little p. Okay, so We're going to kind of do the same thing we did up here. Let's list off the genotypes and their probabilities and the phenotypes and their probabilities. So genotypes. Okay, so how many different allele combinations would we expect in this next generation? Okay, so they could be capital P, could be capital P, lowercase p, or it could be two lowercase p's. So when we go to figure out the probability, I'm going to usually use percentages. Again, if you like to use fractions or decimals, whatever. But I see 1 out of 4 boxes, capital P. I know that is 25%. Okay, 2 out of the 4 are big P, little p. So that would be 50% of the offspring would have that genotype. And then I have 1 out of 4 left for big P, little p. But then, let's figure out phenotypes. Okay, so what are the possible physical looks of the flowers of this generation here? So they're either going to have purple flowers or white flowers. Okay. So remember, if the dominant allele, you have one of them or more, that dominant trait shows up. So I see at least one dominant allele in 1, 2, 3 boxes. 3 out of 4 would be 75%. And white flowers, only 1, 25%. All right. So away from pea plants for a while, let's talk about humans. There are not that many traits in human beings that are actually this simple. One of them is Huntington's disease. If you've heard of this one, it's a pretty tragic one. People are, 100% normal and don't have any symptoms until they reach middle adulthood, usually in their 30s, and then their nervous system starts to break down and eventually they lose control of their body. But this is an interesting one always to study because people want to decide, do I want to have kids? My dad had Huntington's disease, and then he died when I was a kid because of Huntington's disease. Would I want to do that to a kid or pass that on to my kid? And so a lot of people go to genetic counseling to try to figure out, okay, if I had kids, what's the probability of them having this terrible disorder? And it is a dominant allele, okay? So we're going to have capital H for Huntington's, since it's dominant, and lowercase for not Huntington's, okay, since that's recessive. Okay, so it's not a particularly common disorder. So let's say the parent is heterozygous and their partner is normal, does not have Huntington's disease. Okay, so let's figure out the probability if somebody has Huntington's disease, have kids with somebody who does not, what's the probability of their kids having it? So I'm going to take one parent, split them up along the side, other parent, split them up along the top, and go ahead and fill it in. All right. All right, so genotypes, allele combinations, how many do we have? Okay, it looks like we just have 1, 2, right? They're either big H, little h genotype, or little h, and there's 2 of each, so they would each be 50%. Okay, so phenotype, Huntington's, so they have this disease that's going to make them lose their ability to control their bodies as they enter middle and late adulthood, or not. And again, we have, remember, if you have at least one dominant allele, it's going to show up. Okay, so 50% of their kids would have it and 50% would not. Okay. So let's say, let's say somebody ends up here. So they lucked out. So their dad had Huntington's disease and their mom was normal and they got this genotype. Okay, is there any way they could pass that on to their kids? Could they pass Huntington's on because it's, quote, in their family, unquote? Okay, no. Okay, the only way they can pass a disorder on is if they have an allele for it. If you're this person, you don't have an allele for Huntington's, so you could not pass it on to your kids. Okay, so people that have a parent with Huntington's, it's a 50-50 chance. Okay, so a lot of times they would have a genetic test done before they decide to have kids, because by the time when they're in the age of having kids, they don't know if they have it yet or not. So it's kind of a scary one. And let's do one more that's kind of a weird one. Okay, so most people know XX is the combination of sex chromosomes for female, generally speaking, and XY is for male. Okay, so let's have two people come together and make some kids here. Let's see how many should be boys and girls. So you're going to have a mom and a dad. Okay, so take one, and these are not alleles, these are whole chromosomes, but the process works the same. So I'll put mom's chromosomes down here and dad's chromosomes up here. And if I fill this out, okay, how many boys and girls are we going to have here? Okay, so 2 of the boxes would be for girls, 2 of the boxes would be for boys. 50% boys, 50% girls. But one thing I always kind of want to mention, because I think it's interesting, who actually determines if a baby is going to be a baby girl or a baby boy? The mom or the dad? Okay, mom has only X's. Every single one of her eggs has an X in it, unless there's some non-disjunction and maybe it has only, doesn't have one. But mom can only give X's. So half of dad's sperm have X's and half of dad's sperm have Y's. So it's 100% the sperm that determines if a new baby is going to be a boy or a girl. All right. So probability is a likelihood, but not a certainty. Okay. So reality is what actually happens. Okay. Any genotype that is greater than a 0% probability is a possibility. Okay, so let's think back to like this one. Okay, so maybe I have this cross, and I'm like, oh, well, you know, I'm only going to plant one pea. If I only plant one pea, surely it will be purple, because I have a 75% chance that it'll be purple. So surely it'll be purple. Well, no. Okay, even if you only plant one pea, it could have a possibility of being a white flowering plant. So, and then here's another wrinkle. Okay, where do all these alleles come from? They come from mutations. So there's still a chance that there will be a mutation to create a new allele in the process of making gametes. So Punnett squares are still not even perfect. So all these Punnett squares we did where we're considering a single gene, the flower color gene or the Huntington's disease gene, we call them monohybrid crosses, or you could call them single factor crosses. I think I want to try to finish this page. The alternative to that is called a dihybrid cross, or a double factor or 2-factor cross. So in this one, we're going to look at 2 traits at a time. Okay, and I did put page numbers throughout the notes here, especially since we're not actually together for this, so if you want to read up on it, you can. So I got 2 genes here. I got the height gene for pea plants, tall is dominant over short, and the pea shape gene in pea plants, where round peas are dominant to wrinkled peas. Okay, and here's my parents. Okay, this one's big T for height, and big R, little r for shape. This one's big T, little t for height, and little r for shape. And to figure out what they would put in their gametes, we're going to FOIL just like you FOIL in math. And this is going to come up with every possible combination of alleles they could put in their gametes. Okay, so we're going to take the first of each letter, the outside letters, the inside letters, and the last of each letter. That's the FOIL. Okay, so here's that genotype again. So first of each letter, big T, big R. Outside letters, big T, little r. Inside letters, big T, big R. And last of each letter, big T, little r. Okay. Second possibility here, first of each letter, big T, little r. Outside letters, big T, little r. Inside letters, little t, little r. And last of each letter, little t, little r. Okay, and so we need above each column and to the side of each row, one allele from each gene. Because when we make our gametes, we put one allele of each gene inside. And so above and to the side is supposed to represent the gametes that could be from the parents. I think right there. Okay. So I'm going to go first parent down the side, big T, big R, big T, little r, big T, big R, big T, little r. Okay, so those came from right there. Okay, and then we're going to do second parent across the top. Okay, and you are absolutely welcome to fill out this entire thing. Okay, so like this box, I want to keep the same gene together, so I'm going to keep the T's together, and I want to keep the R's together. So like this one would be big T, big R, little r, right? So I got big T, big R, little r. You're welcome to go ahead and fill the whole thing out like that. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a cheat here. So I notice these two are the same, and these two are the same, which means this top half is identical to the bottom half. Okay, so I can actually say, okay, this is going to be exactly the same as this. Like this whole top half is going to be the same as this whole bottom half. So the percentages I get up here will be the same as the percentages I get down here. So I'm going to do one of these. Say, forget that. I don't want to do that. Just doing more work for nothing. And then I can kind of do the same thing up here. I can say, okay, well, these two are the same, and these two are the same, which means these two rows are going to be the same as these two rows. Okay? But be careful here that you don't cross out these two. Because if I cross out these two, they would have a different result than these two. But I can cross out one of each since they're identical. So I can cross out, these two are identical, so I can cross out one of them. And these two are identical, so I can cross out one of them. And this becomes a lot less work. Okay, so now I have big T, little r, big T, big R, little r, big T, little r. Okay, so looks like we have all different ones. So I have big T, big R, little r. What percent of my offspring would I expect to have that? Well, I have 4 boxes that I filled out, and one of them are like that. So 1/4 or 25%. Or I could have big T, I'm doing this one, little r. And again, 1 out of my 4 boxes has that, so 25%. Big T, big R, little r. And big T, little r. Okay, so those are our genotypes, right? Those are the alleles, the specific combinations. Okay, but then if we were thinking phenotypes, okay, would they be tall or short? Okay, well, every single one has at least a capital T. So they're all going to be tall. Okay, so this one in particular would be tall because it has at least one dominant allele for T, and it would also have round P's because at least one dominant round. So on a tall and round, how many of our boxes have at least one capital T for tall and at least one capital R for round? This one does, and this one does. So 50% I would have my seeds produce tall and round pea plant producing plants. The other 50% also tall, because they have at least one capital T, but they would have wrinkled seeds because they don't have any dominant round alleles. Tall and wrinkled. 50% also. Okay. We will stop there. As always, let me know if you have any questions.